I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. All right, what's up, world? Welcome back to I Mix What I Like. I'm Jared Ball, happy to be your host. Do all the things like, share, subscribe, support the Patreon. Make sure you have the bell rung so you don't miss things when your notifications are on and all that kind of good stuff. And come on in, put this in your socials, invite others to join you. Looking forward to this conversation that is long overdue. And folks, I haven't really given this enough attention, but we are very close to not only 50,000 subscribers on Black Liberation Media, but 10,000 here. And according to whatever data I've Googled, that puts Black Liberation Media in like the top. It's like in a very small percent, like 2%, I think, because at 10,000 you're in the top 4% of the 63 million YouTube channels or something crazy. So I appreciate that. Thank you all very much and welcome to the show. Pancho, I hope we can work this out with your class. Salute to you, Professor McFarland. If your students are watching, you are a bunch of lucky students to have a professor like that. And what's up, Jared? The better Jared. Millennials are killing capitalism. Please support them if you aren't already, which is not likely. But yeah, so we got a great conversation to get to, a little bit of relatively speaking time crunch. So I want to welcome, without further ado, Professor Yannick Giovanni Marshall, who among other things is a political theorist and writer in exile from the US, faculty in contemporary Black thoughts at thought at Cal Arts on leave. He is author of The End of Supplication, The Invention of Prostrate Blackness as a Replacement for the Maroon. His essays and interviews have appeared in Al Jazeera, Black Perspectives, and Black Agenda Report. He's been interviewed, of course, on Black Myths at Black Liberation Media, and his work can be found at the website linked in the show description, yannickgiovannimarshall.net. And Professor Marshall, welcome to the show. It is good to see you, greet you, meet you virtually for the first time. Peace.
Respect. Thank you for reading the article and for inviting me on.
No, I mean, first of all, and again, I just want to, can you get just the camera again, just a little bit? I want to make sure everybody can fully see you. Sorry about that.
That work out?
Yeah, that's better. It's just for some reason, like your face got caught in the corner there. I didn't want to,
Cool.
Yeah. But no. So first of all, thank you for writing the article. Again, as I admitted, Jay-Z is, up until the Black Album was my biggest contradiction politically. I was just listening before we went live again. What can I say? What more can I say? So thank you for writing it. And so folks, linked in the show description is the video I did in response. So let's just assume, for the sake of this discussion, folks have seen that. And then I'll invite you to start with, because as we were talking briefly before the show, me being late to catching up to some of your work. There's so many other things more important and interesting that you are doing and that your life entails that I hope we get time to get to. But let me let you first lay out what you would want to say about your article, to clarify any points, to offer up any criticism of what I said or clarify whatever, and we'll go from there.
Okay, yeah. Thank you again for reading this. I just saw my light flicker, and as we'll get into a little bit later, I'm on exile in a place that's not really constant with the power. So if the power shuts off and you don't see me, forgive me ahead of time.
Okay, no worries.
So just to be honest, I am not a hip hop scholar. I'm not a historian, and I don't even have this type of depth. When I just heard you speak on the article, the depth with like who produced which track and all that, I don't have that type of relationship with Jay Z. In fact, I wasn't even writing it as a fan of Jay Z, more of a casual listener. When I grew up in the '90s, it was more Nas for me. I know you have beef with Nas as well, apparently, but it was definitely between those two. It was Nas for me rather than Jay Z. But I wrote recently like an article for Al Jazeera about how millennial hip hop went to kneel and kiss the ring at the Clan Ball, the White House, for Trump for a while. And then Current Affairs read that and they said, "Yo, can you write something on Jay Z?" Because apparently they wanted to talk about Jay Z for a while. And of course, I jumped on it because I wasn't so much interested in the Jay Z part, but in what I think is my critique of a lot of Black leftism is the absence of the lumpen proletariat, or the reduction in thinking about the Black lumpen proletariat, the street hustlers, etc. And it makes sense. I know you speak a lot about workers, but for me, as much as I am absolutely in solidarity with the Black left's support of the worker, for me, what has been very important in my life has been the underclass, and the fact that those of us who have never really been able to hold a job or keep a job, etc., and to think of these people who are part of the working class, or would have been part of the working class, but for the machinations of capitalism and white supremacy, we are pushed outside of it, and so have to find ways to survive. And for that class, who is pretty much a permanent non-working class, I kind of wanted to kind of highlight the defense of people kind of talking down to them, as you say, Jay Z talks down to the Black community, and to speak about the ways of negotiating our conditions in ways that are not very respectable, especially from the Black conscious crowd, which I would say that I'm very much a part of, more than even the London proletariat class. Um, and surviving and theorizing in a language that is not easily accessible to people outside of it, and to say that there is something worthy about that. So I don't give a fuck about Jay Z one way or the other, especially after the Black album, especially after the billionaire status and all that. I've only actually come to appreciate him more later on in life, because again, I was on that Nas thing, and for a while only Dead Prez, that there was a type of poetics that I was not listening to and was not taking serious when I was criticizing him as you are now, and that I'm appreciating more as I kind of expand how I think about revolution, etc.
I love it. I love the point of bringing up the focus on the lumping. And no, yeah, and I admit, my issues with Nas are just some of the political choices that he's made, some of the teaming up with Henry Louis Gates and all of that kind of stuff is just kind of disturbing. But I also admit that I at the height of, was that, sorry, I just heard something. That but I also admit that I did in the Jay Z versus Nas thing, prefer Jay Z. With all due respect, with all due respect, with all due respect to the ether and
Okay.
everything else. To all due respect, yeah,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. I
Okay.
admit it. I admit it. I just there was it's really not logical. There's nothing I can, and it's really not even defensible. I'm not proud of it either. By the way, it just is. Um, but no, but I definitely appreciate the again your point about wanting to pay more attention to the lumping. I think you're right that I and too many others don't do enough of that. And there's even these debates ongoing to the about the extent to which the Panthers or others were right in their assessment that the lumping will produce the revolutionary class. Uh, and uh, uh, and then there's also admittedly for me and others similarly situated, uh, a lack of any authentic engagement with that part of the community. So for instance, the only sustained engagement at this point that I have with those who might come from that community or segment of the community, or from uh, uh, the barely making it working class, I guess if you want to call it that, the barely, 1 foot in the working class, are my students. That's so I you know so I think you raise a legit uh, issue. Um, yeah, I don't have. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So and I still remember, like, because I was raised um in because this was in Toronto, so in one of those places that the best metaphor is the inner city in the U.S. But it was, I remember looking out of my apartment window, and there was once a, this was young, I was like 10, 11, something like that, and there was a line of like church people banging drums and stuff like that outside, walking on the street in a little protest on a Stop the Violence march. And I remember thinking to myself, even at that young age, that wasn't going to do anything. That's not, you're not reaching anybody with that. That's never going to, what do you expect to happen? And for me, when I moved on to a little bit more Pan Africanist and anti colonial perspectives, and part of like the activist communities around my neighborhood and in university later, a lot of what I saw in that procession of Stop the Violence, I found echoes of it in the Black conscious activists who would sometimes come to the neighborhoods that I was from and still have that type of teaching them to be better, teaching them to improve their lives, to join, to be revolutionaries, etc. And I still had, even though I was on their side at that point, I still had this ache and feel that's not going to work. And it's not going to work because one, it is the type of paternalistic thing that you speak about with Jay Z, but also it is a misrecognition of the actual conditions of the lumpen proletariat in the colonized sector. And again, I don't think of the United States as outside of the colonized sector. I think of it as a settler colonial regime. But all settler colonial regimes have their European sector and their colonized sector. So they have apartheid, and that place that is the hood that is treated differently. So the conditions there do not very well respond to like this type of teaching. And I would say that even as one of those conscious people, I was always thinking like, okay, yo, the gangsters need to become more revolutionary. But it took me a while to figure out, no, it's some of the revolutions, as you mentioned, the Black Panthers were right in thinking that the revolutionaries need to become more gangster. It is the gangsters, it is the sex workers, it was the street hawkers, especially outside of the US and Canada, who are much more accessible and much more open to some of the things that I would say than the people who have been trained in jobs and disciplined away from consciousness for so long. I don't really have to talk about Barack Obama is not for us a very long time when talking to somebody that is from my community. But it's harder to change a university student who continuously has drunk the Kool-Aid and believe that a person like Barack Obama, whoever is the next political representation, might be useful. So, and still to this day, it is still sex workers and gangsters and all these other people who support me materially, rather than the experiences with colleagues, etc., who have been more than often trying to be against me because of what I've said and my approach, etc. So I don't agree that the lumpen proletariat can be moved by any type of education and revolutionary education that begins with the idea that they must be taught or that they're ignorant of things. The conditions themselves produce a truth in their very being, as Fanon said, and that truth is useful. And I think something that we have yet to explore because they end up being more revolutionary. That's why they become Black Panthers and not friggin' like Obama will help us people.
Yeah, no, right on. And well, it's good to know. It I appreciate you saying that because it takes a strain and stress off my shoulders thinking that the hood is waiting for me to show up and teach them what they need to be free. Now I can I can finally relax and say, "Oh, I don't have to have that pressure." Thank you, Professor Marshall. I appreciate it. I was sitting over here
I
just
mean, no,
stressed. I was
I'm
stressed.
just
I
yeah, like there's we're much more connected to be. We're much easier targets without the defenses of the books that we're reading and the histories that we are made aware of. When we leave those areas, we are much more easy targets for capital, for politics, etc. But I'm just saying that the shift that you move from when you are being beaten down by in the worst areas of capital to a revolutionary, to anti-colonial radical, to whatever, is almost instantaneous compared to if you weren't from there, or even if you were from there but you have been open to the idea of upward social mobility in the schools and the jobs, etc., it is a much harder tug because you see hope in a way that people that never had it don't. And so you can easily throw it out and just say burn the whole system when you don't really have any reason to hope. And that's why I believe that they are the revolutionary class. That's why all over, it's not just in the US, but all over, the people who started the revolutions have been from the slums more often than they have been in from the jobs. And when they started up in the jobs, they end up looking like politicians, but leftist politicians, if that. Not so much. I don't want to hear nothing about no politician. I want to burn the state down.
So absolutely. Forgive me for this. I don't know if if you're going to have more you want to say on this particular topic, but Huey Teray and Kruma says, "Peace, y'all. Did y'all know Jay Z's Rock Nation CEO is a certified rat? Desiree Perez. I'm just finding out." So this is how bad it has been for me. I know way too much about that situation, and the history of the off mic history of Jay Z, and I'm talking about post his music career. I'm not talking about what he was doing in the streets back in the day. His off mic history post his career, which does include Desiree Perez, is scandalous. And there's room to come back to this. And I was thinking of bringing this back in some form or fashion. So I'll be interested if you have any thoughts on this. But forgive the slight tangent. John Gruden, if I'm following this correctly, the former head coach in the NFL is I think suing the NFL for having been falsely targeted for removal after the email leak came out showing that he had been using all of this anti-black, anti-gay, anti-woman language in emails, and he got exposed and pushed out of the league. The background to that involves the former owner of my former team here in DC, or down the street here in DC, when Dan Snyder was trying to get out of trouble with the NFL to get back in the good graces with the commissioner, whose name is escaping me off in the moment, Roger Goodell, leaked all of those. Had those emails because they were going between John Gruden and Dan Snyder's former partner over there at the football team, uh, uh, Bruce Allen. So Snyder releases snitches, gives over the emails, and to get back on Goodell's good side, so Goodell would not force him out of of his ownership of the team. And in all of the exposure of all of those documents is discussion of Desiree Perez, her criminal background and ties, the work she was doing is doing with Jay-Z and Rock Nation, who were given a $20 million contract as part of the post Colin Kaepernick sports washing. So yeah, if you're just finding out, there is a long and scandalous history involving this woman and Jay-Z, and then beyond. This is just a contemporary story that we could work backward
Yeah.
from. So please, anything you would want to say or add to that, go ahead.
I mean, I saw your stream after the fact, and I was just like, oh damn, like I hardcore did not know none of that. I was taking notes. It was like, I felt like this is how the sausage is made, and this is how deep it really gets. It really is more terrible. And so yeah, I mean, I have nothing to say about that. I'm learning. I got it.
Oh yeah, no, okay, yeah, yeah.
Point
So
made. I accept it.
no, but I mean, it's
100%.
just fast. I mean, and I got most of this from one or two reports that came out a year or two ago when all of this was breaking, and now that this I think John Gruden is gonna. I think he's suing for like 550 million, 500 million, something crazy, and
Hmm.
I hope he does because I feel like this would just reveal so much more of the scandalousness. Um,
Yeah.
but okay. So let me before we sort of segue, let me just ask you to if you would put sort of unless there's more you would want to say, put a sort of bookend on the Jay-Z part of this. You know, as we look to talk more about your broader work and other issues, how, what are you trying to? And, oh, by the way, did I see you wrote another thing called the elegy for an elegy for Jay Z? That oh,
No,
that
that
was
was it.
okay, okay,
Elegy for Jay Z is that
okay,
article. That I don't really write on hip hop at
okay.
all. But if somebody taps me on the shoulder and says, "Yo, write about hip hop," I'm going to use it to say what I really want, which is about the
So
Olympic
okay,
military.
great. So beyond anything you've already said, what would you want to just again, or maybe to repeat, to summarize, whatever? What is it that you want people to walk away with when they read your work about Jay Z, and then how does that maybe segue to talk about how does that connect to whether it's is this a latest book published already, or is it on its way, or okay,
On its way, on his first
the
book, on its way. Yeah,
the end of supplication. If you know, how does Jay
yeah.
Z as a preface work for a discussion of that work there?
Yeah. So I would say there isn't too much that I can say about Jay Z other than what's there. I mean, we're all kind of much agreement that billionaires aren't good. And so for the point of the article was to criticize black excellence and black capitalism and ways to get out through investment and all that. Which I don't think I need to say anything. I don't have anything useful to say to this audience about that. Other than, of course, there is this undervaluing of the organic intellectuals that come from the hood and what they have to say about the political situation. Where in every other place, like okay, I could say this, like it is deep how the white execs kind of used him to be able to speak to the black community, but I'm not fully in agreement that this is just one conspiracy for a type of Jay Z because um, if you broaden the lens outside of the U.S., if you listen to dancehall, if you listen to like the music of the Tutsis in South Africa, etc., in Kenya, etc., you hear the same themes all over. And it's not so much that they're playing for a white audience. There really isn't a white audience there, at least at those times, to consume that. It is an actual expression of when we are running from the bully across the block, when we do have police encounters, when we do know that we're not going to get any job, etc. We do have it as a constant burden on our imagination how to survive to the next day. And that comes out if we have the opportunity or talent to be able to write or speak in our music. We say things like that. So it's not so much that it's just a strategic way to trap the community. I do think that all over in the native sectors, you have the same thing. And that is evidence enough to the fact that um, it is truthful expressions of the hood. I think that truth itself is what is marketed. Not so much that it is a fiction that is imposed on the black community, but the truth, the romance of survival of in capitalism is so interesting that it can be pulverized, it can be manipulated, it can be packaged even in its purest form and sold to white audiences because it is a heroic story. It is something that is magical to survive under the thumbs of all forms of oppression everywhere. So I do think that the Lumpy Proletariat does make that type of music. Even when I thought I had a chance of being a rapper, I was saying some things like that, and there was definitely no white execs trying to trick me into that, though I might have been influenced by people like Jay Z. But there is something to be said about this, the truth that we have in our very being when in the gutters of the colony. That is something that is underexplored by people, even people like me, who have managed to get out of it. But yeah, we can talk about the book too, which is basically just anti-colonialism. But yeah,
So are we going to get bars today? Are we going to get a sample of pun intended of the verses? Are we getting acapellas on this show today? I wasn't ready for that, but I'm happy to.
yeah. I tried to be a rapper, and I realized very quickly that I do not have what it takes to be a rapper, and so now I'm a
Fair
professor, which
enough.
is
Hey,
yeah,
hey, we you
it's all good.
know those isn't that what they say? Those who can't do teach.
Yeah, exactly that, exactly that, exactly
No,
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, uh, just to one of the points you were just making there, one of the arguments that definitely appealed to me it appeals to me are those that some of which are found in some forms of media studies that argue that to your point, the Jay-Z's of the world do influence MCs who are and future MCs. The celebrities of today are used, I think, consciously more often than not. Others would say it happens sort of unconsciously, but or just naturally. But they do end up influencing. And so if so, as my argument has been over the years, one way the colonial apparatus readjusts itself to a new emergent cultural expression is to mine it, assess what is being done that can be used against its own population, and then you just simply, I mean, it doesn't even have to be that conscious. It's just obviously people who are white record execs are only going to want to hear so much radical revolutionary knowledge, or no matter how good or how well it's produced. They're not going to want to, so one way or another, they promote a version that is comfortable and suits their politics and cultural, and culture and worldview. And then that, by trickle down, as youngsters, I think it's pretty easy to remember. We look up to who's there in front of us, the people that are well positioned. We don't know it at the time, but they're well positioned and platformed, and all their music is owned by someone else. And then we mimic them. So you don't have to tell somebody to rhyme like this. You just show them that this is a successful rapper. Here's your local backpack revolutionary, and you're like, oh well, they got all the money and all. So I don't doubt that would have happened. But at the same time, colonialism is not a simple thing. So I don't believe you when you say your forthcoming work is just anti-colonialism. So I mean, can we get a little bit of a preview, and then I definitely would look to get the book when it comes out, and have you back to discuss it then. But what what have you done, or what are you doing that we can look forward to?
Yeah. So I think basically what I was taking aim at was, and you mentioned Colin Kaepernick. This taking a knee, which is the our prescribed performance to deal with our oppression. Whether, and I go back and speak about how they used to have pictures of, like, "Am I not a man and a brother?" An enslaved person on their knee begging for abolition. Taking a knee has the same similar things. And I would go so far, and this is probably the more controversial take in the book, but what the narrative of civil rights is, and Martin Luther King, etc., has that same thing to demand or even ask for rights. Same "am I not a brother" thing. And what that does is that kind of models, just like how you're saying the rapper kind of models for the MC, it models a what Black liberation is supposed to be, which is to kind of protest, have placards, demand rights, demand justice, etc. But that, for me, and I think history would prove it, is that that has not been that is the exception, not the rule. The rule was burned down the plantation. The rule was escape, was marronage, was to move outside of the law, move outside of the entire world, and find your way outside of it and survive outside of it, which the London proletariat also has done in this circumstance. So this marronage, fugitivity, anti-colonialism, the Black radical move has always been the the mainstream tenor in Black liberation, and it's the only logical tenor in Black liberation. But it has been removed and replaced by people who have been pushing the civil rights narrative and pushing an interpretation of Black Lives Matter that means that we should tell our oppressors that we matter too. That same begging on the knee type of thing that trains us expecting people who are interested in Black liberation to already assume the prostrate position. And what I think is that that has never worked, and nobody has ever said, "Oh yeah, well, you are human too. Let's liberate you." That doesn't work. The problem with racism isn't that it's ignorant; is that the people who are against this have power. Burning down the plantation and incapacitating them permanently takes away their power, and so that's the only thing that is useful. And so, for me, we should, this is what the argument of the book is, that we should abandon all of these civil rights, I'm not a brother, all these type of talk, and go back to the original tradition, which always was the undercurrent in all these conversations, because it's always never Martin Luther King only, it's also Malcolm X. It says why you talk to these people in the first place. We always had these figures, and that is our tradition, and so we should step away from anything that doesn't look like that.
So so did I miss it, or or do you define in the book or explain more about what marronage looks like? Then, you know, or how does that politically manifest in this point in the 21st century, or is it more conceptual, or what? Yeah, does that make sense? Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
So no, like, and even in the book, I kind of like mixed the two. Like, proper historians would say, okay, marronage is this, fugitivity is this, etc. And I say that that's not what I'm doing here. What I'm talking about is a distancing of the nationalizing of people that patriotism affects. So instead of seeing yourself as a citizen, instead of seeing yourself as an untreated and unduly citizen that is needs to get their rights back or get their equality. That relationship where you're asking the master for help or asking the master to release you or anything like that, an emancipation that is at the will of your enemy, that is not what marronage is. Marronage is does not wait and ask for the master to do anything. It's never in conversation. When you leave the plantation, you're not trying to negotiate your emancipation. You're leaving and waiting for the chance that you can burn it down. And that situation, that kind of political position in relationship to power, to white power or to colonial power, does somehow exist in places where you are outside of the economy and surviving outside of it, or in black radical movements, whether it is the Black Panthers with hope of destroying the colony, etc., or much more clearly in places like Algeria, in South Africa, and Mau Mau struggle, etc., where the object is not to negotiate with the masters, but to make sure that they don't have a voice in one way or another. So that position, that movement, that type of no longer having any hope in any type of change, however useful and powerful it could be, even if it's a Marxist revolution that keeps the colony intact, the Maroon wants to burn every element of the trace of the colony. And that is a more useful position, especially with the world that we see now, than a position that continues as much as it can, as forthright as it can, try to somehow think that the enemy is in any way part of this discussion.
So as I'm just seeing in my highlights and being reminded, I mean, this does relate very well to your argument about Jay-Z, if I understand it, that you're arguing that Jay-Z is an emissary of the master, is encouraging the potential maroon to stay home and chill, not home, but to stay where they're at and chill. Uh,
Yeah.
um, and you're saying in your forthcoming book is arguing no, let's reject that and head for the hills, so to speak.
Yeah, head for the hills, where it's not possible, like because of their totalitarian control of everything. Instead of colonies, just like doesn't even allow maroon establishments anymore. To head for the hills, almost spiritually or psychologically, so that you are not. It really does matter whether you believe that the enemy can be through enough protests, enough demands, enough whatever, that they will cease being the enemy. In fact, we don't sometimes often speak enough about enemies. We speak more about a type of underinformed compatriot that will somehow kind of get it once we work at it. But once you have been selling children for generations, once you continually maintain the dungeon and the slave center of the prison, once this happens, you there is no going back. It is quite all right, and we're within our rights to be able to say, well, you've done this once. And since you've done this once, I don't trust you tomorrow. And so we are now in a relationship of enemy versus enemy, which is the relationship of the the colonized versus the colonizer everywhere else in the world. Except with patriotism and nationalism, we are sometimes, and not all of us, a lot of us who are on the black radical thing for a while, we also are not trying to be like, okay, well, America, let's get better. But it has a very powerful ideological effect, training people who are genuinely interested in black liberation into the belief that the person who has you by the noose is somehow your friend. No, you pull out the noose once, it's over for you forever. And that um, starts to establish a vision of the future that is post settler colony, that is post America, not one of justice in America. And that is a fundamental difference. Because the Maroon was not thinking about justice on the plantation, they were thinking of the permanent evisceration of all forms of plantations in existence,
So
which is different for me.
and I'm sure you and I know you're not writing a book about, well, if I understand you correctly, it's not a book about the history of Maroon. But just to acknowledge
No.
that there was this contradiction where some of them occasionally made arrangements with the plantations in exchange for their own particular self interest. And I'm the way I'm hearing what you're saying is that's not what is being advocated here. It's not. It's a more uh, I don't know. I want to say broad umbrella and radical form than something as specific to that level of self interest that would allow the comprador relationship or some. If am I on the right track or yeah? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, so and what happens is that to kind of invalidate the will to radically depart from colonialism, people will highlight these, which has to be the minority of the runaway or the fugitive who sold out other enslaved people for the to the masters. And of course, that this happened. And I'm not trying. Yeah, this is not like a historical defense of every maroon everywhere. It is more about the distinction between being on the plantation and hoping that it will change, and not being on the plantation and not believing that it will change. Because we can say the same thing to people who believe in work. There have been a lot of people, of workers, of and not to say that Maroon is not a worker, but a lot of people who have been workers or politicians or part of leftist organizations who still to this day believe that there is some hope in settler colonial occupation of indigenous land. So you can also say that people who have been part of black leftist organizations have also sold out the people to the settlers and to settler occupation. Um, but we wouldn't condemn the workers vis-a-vis the master. We would believe that there is some problematic thinking in some of the workers to believe that settlerism can be fruitful. But that doesn't mean that the workers as a category are not useful to overthrowing systems of capitalist exploitation. And I would say the same thing with the Maroons. And Maroonage in general, which is not just this specific thing. Just because you run away doesn't mean that you're going to sell out your next runaway. And that should not be used to be able to think, to throw away the idea of running away and escaping power itself. It should just be a recognition that we should always be self-critical. Both of those of us who are in organizations that have a not completely distinctive view of the end of colonial occupation, who still kind of are negotiating with the masters. Those people should be self-critical, and so should those of us who do not believe in it. We should also look at the legacies of people who do not believe in it and how they've also failed as well.
Right on. Folks, we're talking with Dr. Yannick Giovanni Marshall. Links to his work and more is in the show description. Please like, share, subscribe, put this in your socials, comment, all the things. I'm happy for us to come back to any of this, but I thought a good way of folding in something else I definitely wanted to ask you about is your own marronage, is your own experience with at least escaping one plantation. I don't know if you've avoided them all, but so you made so apparently you have a featured talk on your website, Message from Exile: Why I, a Black Studies Professor, Left the United States. Why in the world would you ever want to leave this place? This, you got all the
Yeah,
way
right.
here. You got degrees from the most elite universities. You are a PhD. You got a job. and you still wanted to leave? What is wrong?
It's wild, right? Um, yeah.
Or
Apparently,
inspirational?
cynical. Okay, respect. Yeah, apparently, like settler colonialism isn't like all that is cracked up to be. That apparently they haven't, with all the advances and progress that they said that they have sold us, that they have made, they still haven't quit the coffle. They still haven't quit the lynch mob society. They haven't quit the plantation. That the plantation has become basically a police state. My campus wasn't necessarily on that at this point, though who knows what's happening behind the scenes. But for a lot of, including my alma mater, like literally became police departments. They were arresting pro-Palestinian students. They're
And
coming
forgive the
for
interruption,
black
but I do
thoughts
think
in
it's important
general.
to note that your alma mater is Columbia University. So I think for context, that's important. Yeah, sorry.
Yes, yes. For 2 degrees. So I have a very close connection to Columbia. Um, who used to be, and the reason that I was attracted to them in the first place is they had a list saying that they had the most dangerous professors um, uh, of anyone else, which is obviously what attracted me. But now, all that danger has evolved into, can we slave catch a student who is opposing genocide? So that wasn't acceptable to me. And not only that, because of the domino effect of pretty much every other campus and the selling out and trading money with the neo-Nazi regime, for me, uh, you yes, you can survive in it and you can speak and do what you want to do, but it is almost a stifling atmosphere. I have a fear that subconsciously I will write things a little differently than I would have if I was out of there. And so for me, to be even the delusion of freedom, to be on a less overt plantation elsewhere, I still would like to at least maintain that than rather to be somehow subconsciously tempted into saying things that are not effective, because that's all I want to do, which is to write things that are effective. And once you have a normalized neo-Nazism and have the signatories being your own campus, your own campuses, then there isn't anything there for me. So I mean, like I feel a way about one leaving my students, but also other Black Studies professors who are still in the heat. And I also am inspired by the fact that they know that they will not be moved one way or another, the, despite the tanks rolling down the street. But because of my own fragility, I said, and because I don't like them, I've never liked like how they got down in general, the general Nazism. When I had like a lot of followers on Twitter, uh, Nazism kind of took it over, and I just left it immediately. I'm very uncomfortable in Nazi spaces, and so this, even though it was always a Nazi space, if you're gonna put the swastika in my face directly, it's not for me.
Right on. All right. Folks, if there are any comments, questions, queries, conundrums, feel free to put them in the chat. Uh, and and we can bring them to Professor Marshall. Uh, yeah, that's yeah, like I said, it's inspirational. I've had many fantasies about getting out of here, but for a variety of reasons, that's just not on the menu. But I definitely appreciate the sentiment and the interest to do so. Um, but I also recognize that it's difficult to get away from the reach, politically and otherwise. So, but uh, yeah. Um, but
So
please, yeah.
let me just take this opportunity to do my Dame Dash thing, which we're going Jay Z, but to kind of show what I'm doing to survive, which is that I have now kind of, I'm still teaching, but I'm teaching online. So I have my courses on my website, Yannick Giovanni Marshall dot net. And the good thing about that is that I was never really like pressured to teach things in liberal arts colleges. I was teaching my deconstructing the police, radical black freedom, all things that I didn't feel pressured one way or another. There are every so often there is a type of worry that you are going to be uh, brought in to teach like core courses. So now I do have the freedom, even though I'm no longer in, again, the stability of being in the job. But of course, being black is always job instability. I am more free to say what I want and more directly. And I even feel that I'm going to say things that I probably wouldn't have said just because of the hate mail that I usually get. So, it is a rough thing to kind of go into exile, but I don't know how many people who have gone into exile. I was like, yeah, this is going to be a joyride. But still, um, being maroon free. However, I'm doing that in my limited capacity, just like being outside of a plantation. There is something to be said about it, and I like that freedom.
Well, listen, I mean, I'm happy to encourage folks to sign up at the link in the show description for your courses, and for you to come back anytime to talk about your courses or other work. I definitely want to get um, uh, the book when it comes out, and have more of these conversations. And to whatever extent that helps you support you staying in exile in a more comfortable way, that's all to the good. Uh, yeah, yeah. Anything else? I don't see any questions coming up. I don't know if people have already exhausted them. I've you know all of mine have been answered, and I look forward to developing more as I get more familiar with your work, and I'm very interested in your forthcoming book, so congratulations on that too.
Respect, respect. I will say that if people knew me for anything, I saw millennials killing capitalism in the chat like a while ago. But if people knew me for anything, they would have known my very short article, "Black Liberal, Your Time Is Up." And even Two Black was kind of contacting me from that, which kind of summarizes my general vibe, and it's a short version of my of the book, which is more of just elaboration on that. So if you do want to check something out that kind of shows my thinking on that, or to contact me, then yeah, Black Liberal, Your Time Is Up is a very short, condensed way to talk about
And
it.
is the
And I spoke about it on Millennials Killing Capital as
Okay,
well.
right on, right on. And have you oh, I missed that episode then. But you have, is that linked in your on your website too?
Yeah, and on
Under
writings. I
writing,
mean,
yeah.
I'm doing this website design by myself, so it's all kind of messed up, but I'm getting
No,
there.
I think it works. Oh, okay, 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 okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So let's see. Um Black liberal, your time is up. So this was something you published on Al Jazeera. Is that what that's saying there? Is that what that means there?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So if you look at Al Jazeera Black Label, Your Time Is Up, that is, I think, probably my most circulated essay, and where I'm just talking about like Black Label, Your Time Is Up, a general rant and anger about their domination of what Black liberation is and how we continuously get silenced. So that now people imagine that all we are is going on talk shows talking about like how we should have peace when nobody has been saying that anywhere that is useful. So yeah, the people. It wasn't just me that was feeling that way. A lot of people were feeling that way as well. So that was an opportunity for me to connect with a lot of people. So yeah,
Yeah, I'm sorry I missed that. So I'll catch up to that too. So yeah, yeah, I'll definitely be in touch. So
respect
what did Jay-Z do again? Uh, uh, a
a
lot.
lot.
Prevented Marronage, blocked revolution, gentrified Brooklyn,
Yeah,
carried black
yeah,
capitalist water, scuttled
yeah,
Colin Kaepernick's effort. I mean, name it,
yeah,
name it. He dropped some nice records.
yeah.
He dropped some nice records. I'm not gonna front. He dropped some nice records,
And that's the
and
danger.
there's,
Using our poets
I
against
mean,
him.
that's the thing. And these new series of interviews are coming out with Lance Unrivera, who Jay Z allegedly stabbed at one point back in the day, and Lance is saying he's got some forthcoming documentary coming out with some more stuff. He said Jay Z. You mentioned Dame Dash. He takes Dame's side in this and said Jay Z, undermined him. So he did also say Jay Z and Biggie were going to start a label together. That was on the menu at one point for those who care about that bit of history and whatnot. But yeah, that's what Jay Z did. Jay Z and more. Jay Z is a big problem. He's been a big problem for a minute. Um, so no, nobody blamed him for commercialism in rap or hip hop. We're saying rap. In fact, if you correct me if you're wrong, if I'm wrong, I'm at least saying commercialism in rap and hip hop produced Jay Z and imposed Jay Z on us. So I don't blame him for doing that. No. Uh, One of the things I remember, he's trying to rebrand himself, but Fat Joe was one of the first major rappers to start breaking the whole don't sell out line and doing commercials and stuff. So like, you know, he wants to take credit for everything in hip hop these days. That's something he could probably talk about. So. But anyway,
And just one final note on that. Like this is one of the reasons why I think we should be critical of our own people as well. Because I remember in the other stream we were talking about like Mos Def and like Talib Kweli and Common, but Common is doing
oh
commercials
man.
too. Um, yeah, like Talib Kweli was in a fight with No Name for like a few years ago. Um, Doing some type of like pipe down no name type of thing. Who else? The Roots. I love the Roots. I love everything about the Roots, but they're dancing for Jimmy Fallon. And not only that, but it just came out that they didn't pay or credit Eve um, in their thing. So even our black conscious like the prototypical like stars have just as much to answer for than people like Jay Z. So I don't know if we should make that type of Jim Crow line so explicit.
No, I mean, Black Thought and Common are doing progressive insurance commercials together. So,
I didn't
yeah, yeah,
know. I
yeah,
did not
yeah.
know.
It was disturbing. And
Yeah.
uh I suppose I should do the YouTube thing and say that I did a video on it, so everybody should go and watch the video. But yeah, no, it's now I just forgot. See, that's what I get. I forgot what I was gonna say. I just lost my thought. I'm assuming you're talking about Eve from Rough Riders Eve, the original.
Rough
The
Riders Eve. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
EVE. Yeah.
yeah. He got cooked on Blue Sky, Talib Kweli. No. Um, yeah, I got what was I? Dang, what was I just going to say though?
And those were our
Yeah,
alternatives.
yeah.
Those were our alternatives. Those were if you weren't on that lane, you were on that lane. But that lane was not perfect either at all. It was also troublesome, or at least was going to evolve into some troublesome. I don't really have the same beef with Most Def. I didn't see anything that he did that I wouldn't agree with to this point.
No, years
So,
ago
but
he
he's
did
like
a.
one out of that whole
Years
crowd.
ago he did a like I want to say it was either a Toyota commercial or a Coca Cola commercial. But this is a long. But that
Well,
I don't. But I
had more
but I
dominant.
but I even forgive him for that. Like I don't think he's done that much. But even honestly,
Yeah.
when he's performing in films like Brown Sugar, was that the film he was in? Is that what I'm remembering? Was that the
I
one
don't
where
remember.
he plays a rapper and Sanaa Lathan and what's his name are the couple that have a rapper anyway, whatever. But the point is, when he does commercial films or when he's in the what was it, the heist or whatever, the whatever they was in Italy, whatever, where they steal the stuff. He's in one of those movies um, with Mark Wahlberg. Those kinds of appearances, I do think, even again unconsciously undermine his radical image and at least one time radical image. Um, Yeah, brown sugar. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But so whether they mean to, I don't think he means to or whatever. But this is again the trappings of capitalism and disorganized spaces. If you're not organized enough to be have somebody pull your coat and say, "Bro, don't do that." Uh, uh, a lot of people can get caught up. But the thing I was going to say was that there was this point where, and I probably had some remnants of optimism when Jay Z and Dead Prez did that collaboration. And when Jay Z was, and it was at the time that Jay Z became the head of Def Jam, and there was a claim and a rumor that he was going to create a sub label under Def Jam that was going to house the quote unquote backpack rappers or left political rappers like Dead Prez and the Roots were supposed to move in there as well. And of course, that never went anywhere. And it probably did more to undermine the radical politics of Dead Prez than to elevate them in that kind of collaborative effort. But I did have a moment where I thought, oh wow, Jay Z. But really, what Jay Z is a brilliant businessman, and he knows the culture, he knows the art, and knows how to manipulate it for his and ultimately their benefit. So, uh, yeah.
Well, I can't say anything at all about Dead Prez because literally I was almost in an unhealthy relationship with Dead Prez for a very long time. Like I would only listen to Let's Get Free for like a year, banning all other hip hop for a while. I remember that, and it was a very strange situation. But I only wanted Let's Get Free like in my life in terms of hip hop. But I do remember I used to follow them or whatever it was back in those days. And there was when Obama came around, they gave me a moment of pause because I don't know who it was who said it, but they said that they were not cool with Obama. They were all down with O'Malley saying that he's in blackface, etc. But they said that they did not want to have to to clamp down on the people's hopes when they were believing in Obama. And I, to this day, felt that that was a problem. Um, because we were all saying that, and this was like when people were saying stay woke and it wasn't like co-opted by Nazis, against Obama, and they were kind of in the mediating position. And I did not like that. So I think maybe the bottom line is to not idealize and not mythologize any of the people. They all are worthy of critique, including ourselves. Because some might say rightly, why am I even writing in a place like Current Affairs in the first place? Because the vast majority of people, I assume, is a white audience, and I had to fight that with against the idea of imagining a white audience for my editors themselves. But yeah, like even Dead Prez for me is the quintessential perfection, and I still had a moment of pause.
So
So
that's interesting
yeah,
because I remember. I wonder when that was said and which one of them said it, because I do remember.
I think it was M1
So
if I
that's even
remember.
more strange because because in 2008 when Cynthia McKinney and Rosa Clemente were running for the Green Party nomination, on her behalf, on their behalf, I remember I was sent on a journalistic mission to run down to DC where Dead Prez were in town performing and to interview M1 on camera supporting their Green Party effort. So I'm not sure how they.
No, they were never down with
No, I
Obama.
know, but
They
to
were.
to actively promote an alternative might contradict their
Mm.
concern or the expressed concern that they would be suppressing the hopes and interests of Black America, because theoretically, at least, that message, that clip was meant, not obviously that we had the media machine that Obama had, but that clip was meant to reach Black and brown audiences to say, you, you don't need to do that. um Yipper,
I think somebody put
Yipper,
it
that was
down there.
almost 20 years ago. I
So
used to
somebody,
move with a quickness back then. Yipper's asking, you ran somewhere. Yeah, yeah. I'm telling you, I was nice with it at one point.
but what I was saying is that somebody put it that it was in the song called Politics. That's probably where
Oh,
I heard
okay,
it too.
okay.
And I think what they're what they were trying to do is to say that this swell of energy that is emanating from the community that might be directly misplaced in this person shouldn't be positioning ourselves as in opposition to it, because there's nothing good that will come out of that. And I get that, I understand that. It just made me feel like not you too, Dead Prez, for a moment. Maybe I was a little immature. I don't know what it was, but I just, to this day, I remember that moment. But then again, I was only
Now you
listening to
want
Let's
them
Get
to
Free. I didn't
hold
want to hear
that
anything else. So
line perfectly everywhere forever. Yeah, I get it. I get it.
all the time, yes, forever.
Um, I mean, that's
Yeah,
in some ways that's how I felt when I heard them do the track with Jay Z. I was like,
I didn't even know about this track of
oh
Jay Z right now,
yeah,
so you're already
it's called
ruining
Hell Yeah. And one of the reasons why I like, you too young probably for this, but one of the reasons why I liked it is that they sampled that classic. Now I can't remember. I'm not going to remember that classic. I guess it's house track. Set it off on the left, y'all. Set it off. I suggest y'all set it off. So they sampled that beat underneath this track called Hell Yeah. Don't you want to get free, my name? Hell yeah. I mean, the track is dope. The only problem I had with the track, because I used to deliver pizzas, is that M1's verse was talking about robbing a pizza delivery man. And I was like, come on now, don't rob the pizza man. You know what I'm saying? I'm working, I'm trying, I'm just delivering food. You know what I'm saying? I was like, that was my only issue with the track. Um, and
but that's the lumping thing. Like sometimes we wanted to be the pizza man, they never gave us a pizza man job. So what do you expect?
but my point is, I live right next door. I'm saying I'm the pizza man, like I'm delivering to the house next door to where I'm living, and you would have robbed anyway. But I get it. I get it. I get it. I get it. I can't help
Remember
it.
when Outcast was saying that I lived across the street from the projects. That was my life. I lived across the street from the projects. And even though I was on the side of the people, if I was to get robbed while talking about my black this, black that, like I could kind of get it. I could kind of get it, because I was just an inch above where they were, and still like we are put in this bucket. So it's going to happen that some crabs are going to pull us down. That's just going to happen. The problem is that we have to get out of the bucket rather than to tell the other crab, stop pulling me down. That's not going to work, because eventually your stomach is hungry and you're going to pull somebody down. That's so you better just stop trying to
It was just
like
a selfish, subjective
missionize them
concern.
and just break the bucket.
Yeah, just a selfish, subjective concern for my own, like, not the pizza
But
man.
it hurts. It hurts. That also hurts
Not the
after a while.
pizza
That
man.
also hurts. You think about, you can't think about subjective. It all gets confusing. You get brain fog. You don't think straight, and you don't really think about whether this is a subjective concern or not. You're just like, that person has money, and I'm not trying to be here anymore.
Oh, too black. As a former pizza man, try to rob me. It was a rap.
That's the
Not
problem,
me.
because the pizza man also doesn't want to
My
be where we
attitude
are.
was, you can have it. You can have it. And we used to tell him, this is not my money. You can have it. I'm not fighting you for it. I'll lay it. You even suggest that it's a robbery. You don't even have to pull no tools out or nothing. Just say, hey, it's right here, bro. It's right here. And I got pizzas in the back. You can have them. It's all you.
That's
Yeah,
solidarity.
because I was like, I'm
That's
not.
solidarity.
We did it. It did come up because it was always, even in these tree-lined streets, there was neighborhoods like the one I grew up in that were literally on a list of do not deliver. And I would be like, nah, we delivering. And I was like, I'll take it over there. And then I would tell them, but if I get robbed,
Mhm.
they're gonna have it. I'm not dying for no $20
Yeah.
pizza. And I'm like, like whatever. Like that's why I can't be no
Yeah.
armored truck deliverer. I would just be like, here.
Yeah. It all
And you don't
works.
have to
Well,
pull nothing out. You
if we're
just have
doing
to
that,
look at me
that's
funny.
solidarity.
Here,
Yeah,
here. I don't want. Hey, I open up the back.
that's good.
Here you
That
go.
yeah. But you see, when once we have, because I remember Not that there was a very big difference between me not having a job and me having a job. Because immediately after I had a job, I, for the first time in my life, thought that I do have something to protect. That was never in my mind before. But when I did have something, I was, and then you immediately start assuming the class position of somebody that is slightly, you're still working and you're being exploited by the job, like completely. But you still, vis-a-vis the person that is trying to rob you, you still see yourself a little bit different immediately once you get the job, at least in my case. And that, I think, shows that there is the revolutionary potential that does not exist with me, because I might try to negotiate between my boss and the person on the street, but this person on the street will rob both of us, the boss or me.
Look, like I said, I'm Michael Clayton with it. I'm not the one you kill. I'm the one you bribe. All you got to do, don't rob me as a pizza man. Pull my coat. Let's rob the store together, bro.
For real. For real, for real. That's how it's supposed to be. That's
I'll
exactly how
let
it's
you in
supposed to
and
be.
get the whole register, the whole safe in the back. Like what you
Yeah.
want in my little bit of pocket?
Not defending no
Yeah, don't
pizza
mess
man.
with the pizza man. Let's get the store.
Exactly. I don't own this pizza place. No. Yeah. I'll show you how.
Hey. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Professor Marshall, this has been dope, man. This has been fun. Uh please, everybody, don't follow my poor example of being this late. Check Dr. Marshall's work. It's in the show description. When is the book coming out?
They say October 30th as a pre-order, so hopefully it's there. Everything's on my website, Yannick Giovanni Marshall. I'll try to .net, so I'll try to keep updates on that as best as
Right
I
on.
can.
The links in the show description, including to all the other discussions, including the one with Black Myths. So please check all that out. And I'll have to check the one I missed when you were on with Millennials. My fault on that one. Salute to them as well. Again, thank you very much, and we'll look to do more. I appreciate those who were able to make it here live. Salute to you as well. Please, everybody, do what you can to support the show. Put this out there and support Dr. Marshall's work. And I will be in touch sooner than later. This has been great. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And I also
Sure.
want to just say respect to Two Black, who probably put my work out there into this realm in
No
general.
doubt.
So I have to definitely shout out to him.
No, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. All right, everybody. Peace. Only because we know you're willing to fight for it, like Fred Hampton used to say. And we'll catch you next time around here at.
And what do you sacrifice?
Calm, kindness, kinship, love. I've given up all chance at inner peace. I made my mind a sunless space. I share my dreams with ghosts. I wake up every day to an equation I wrote 15 years ago for which there's only one conclusion. I'm damned for what I do. My anger, my ego, my unwillingness to yield, my eagerness to fight, that set me on a path from which there's no escape. I yearn to be a savior against injustice without contemplating the cost, and by the time I look down, there's no longer any ground beneath my feet. What is my sacrifice? I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy to defeat them. I burn my decency for someone else's future. I burn my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see. Now, the ego that started this fight will never have a mirror or an audience or the light of gratitude. So what do I sacrifice? Everything, 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 everything.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.